so what was I just saying? We're just talking. What was I just saying? I said, this is what I want to get on camera. Is what were we talking about? Oh, seeing the light bulb go off.
Yeah.
About how, what was the light bulb? What were we talking about?
The sugar.
Yeah,
When
but what?
When you have sugar.
Okay, so here's the deal. I'm getting some flashbacks here.
Right now?
Yeah, we're just talking. It's all good. Love you. I love you. I care, okay? We're here for a good reason. Other people are going to benefit from this. All right, so going through our little initial thing that we do with the Combine members here, we talk about foods to avoid, our definition of real food, how to structure our daily eating. Debbie here completely understands like what real food is, and of course we had a discussion around protein powders and how that we don't consider protein powders real food. So let's touch on that for a moment. And I know that it's hard for us to get in our minds that it's not good for us, but because we've been brainwashed to think from the people that sell these things that powder is a meal replacement, that it's good for you, it's got all these things that are cleansing and good for your gut. And I know that back when I did a lot of protein powders, which I used to live off of them, I was convinced that science knew better than Mother Nature because it was scientifically engineered to give me the right amino acids and minerals and fatty acids, because that's what the marketing experts from these companies are telling you. And what I was telling Debbie is we want to think in terms of eating food that has a life. I am a living being and I have a livingness about everything that's in me, and so I want to eat things that have a livingness about them because we jive with each other, you know? I don't jive with a powder. And then we were talking about like when we eat, we want to eat to facilitate building this beautiful body that we have. Well, I can picture eating like a steak or a pork chop or even some chicken breast or whole chicken or whatever. I can picture that being this, but I can't picture a bowl of powder being this. Right. It doesn't really make an equal conversion. So we had a little discussion around like, okay, why protein powders might not be. Then I remember Debbie was like, yeah, but they told me that, of course they told you that. And maybe they really believe it. And so then that went into the next thing that we talked about, which was, yeah, but this girl lost a lot of weight, okay?
60 pounds.
She lost 60 pounds drinking these protein shakes. Man, there are people out there that lose weight eating fast food every day. So it's like, just because someone loses weight doesn't mean that that thing is right or healthy, or it might not even mean that they lost weight because of that thing. They may be losing weight in spite of that thing. She may have lost weight. So what happens when someone's doing all the wrong things and they feel like crap, and then they come over into this world of someone that has some shakes and powders and stuff, and they say, here, drink this powder 2 times a day, or whatever the recommendation is, and I also want you to stop eating this and this and this and this and this. Now, are they losing weight and changing their body because of the powder or because they got rid of all the crap?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But they would be convinced that it's because, it's the powder. Now, if they would have just lost all the crap and then ate real food, then that would have been an even bigger win, you know? So sometimes people are losing weight and things are changing for them, not because of the things that they say they're doing, but in spite of the things that they're doing, or maybe because there's other confounding variables or factors that are playing into that whole deal, you know? Same thing when people go vegan, plant-based, you know, oh my God, I lose weight, feel great, because I stopped eating meat. No, it's not because you stopped eating meat. It's because you stopped eating all the crap. And you just so happen to stop eating meat. And if you brought meat back in, we'd believe that you feel better, but that's a whole nother discussion. Yeah, so this is good stuff. People need to hear this. What else? Well, let's go back through our little meeting. So we talked about that,
We're talking about the sugars.
Okay, yeah. So then we talked about,
the sun-dried.
oh yeah, oh no, carbs. So I was like talking about carbs, and Debbie's like, look, listen, slow down. Like, okay, you and Josh is her son. I've worked with Josh for a little bit, and he's seen a lot of great things happen. And she's like, y'all are way smarter than me, and you understand things. I don't understand what you're talking about when you say carbs. And I was like, wow, maybe that's something that a lot of people don't understand. So when I say carbs, she was like, I said, what do you think I mean when I say carbs? What'd you say?
I don't even remember, Paul.
What did you say? Before learning what we just learned, what is carbs? Before learning that, what did you say?
I don't remember.
You said vegetables.
Probably.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So I said, what do you think carbs are? She said vegetables.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay. So to us,
I
carbs,
cheated my way through school. I don't care.
everybody's like, we all need to hear this stuff. Sometimes we take for granted that I'm in this
Or
world.
you just assume that.
Or just assume people know because I'm in this world all the time.
Josh has tried to teach me.
Yeah.
He can't. I said it's over my head. I don't get it.
Yeah. How many things? It just makes me wonder. How many things do I say that I'm just assuming people get it and they don't get it? But
Yeah.
this is why this is so good. This is helping other people. So, carbs to us mean, although I guess vegetables could be considered a carb, we're talking about predominant carbohydrate sources, meaning sources of sugar and sources of starch. Starch is chains of glucose tied together, okay? So starch and sugar is what we mean by carbohydrates. Okay. So to us, the real food carbs are going to be fruit, honey, and then starchy stuff like potatoes and sweet potatoes and yams and rice and stuff like that, okay? Now there's other things that would not really be considered real food. So anyway, that's what we mean by carbs. So I was telling Debbie, we don't want to have carbohydrates first part of the day. And so we clarified what carbohydrates were. And then we talked about why do we not want to have carbohydrates first part of the day? And that led into a discussion around snacking and everything else, okay? And this is where a big light bulb went off. So we don't want to have if I'm trying to train, first of all, I'm eating food to give the body what it needs to build this beautiful body, nutrients, raw materials. And when I say raw, I don't mean uncooked. I mean like the building blocks of this whole thing. I'm eating in a way to give my body what it needs, and I'm also eating in a way that trains my body how to use fat for fuel. My excess body fat. When I do this, I'm saying excess body fat. That's what we all want, for the body to tap into excess body fat for fuel. So those are the two things that we're focusing on when we're eating. So we don't have carbohydrates because when I have, and now that we understand what carbs are, when I have sugar or starch, I'm telling my body not to use fat for fuel. I'm telling my body to use sugar and starch for fuel. So I want to start my day and have the most of my day, the majority of my day without carbohydrates, parentheses, sugar and starch, because then my body is forced to learn how to make energy from something else. And ideally that's coming from fat, which is another reason that I told Debbie we want to have a little bit of fat with every one of our meals, because if I'm not having the sugar and starch, I need to tell my body what I want it to use for energy instead of sugar and starch, okay? Now the final piece of that is we don't want to snack in between meals. And so she'd brought up, but when I snack, I have almonds, cashews, and cranberries, right? Yes. And then we were talking about, okay, this is where her light bulb went off. We were talking about, so the only time my body is going to tap into my fat stores is when it has to. Mm-hmm. If I'm eating a cranberry, it doesn't have to. That's where she's like, that's when the light bulb went off. It doesn't have to.
I get it.
Because when I'm eating a cranberry, my body is using the cranberry for energy. It doesn't have to use this. So the only time my body's going to tap into my fat stores is when it has to. And when I'm eating, it doesn't have to, especially when I'm eating sugar because I'm giving it the opposite signal. But even when if she took out the cranberries and she was snacking on almonds and cashews, even though that's a step in a better direction, it's still getting some energy from the almond and cashews, so it doesn't have to tap into this. So
it's not getting them anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Well, okay, now another takeaway from this is we don't want to move in a direction of like having an eating disorder and being neurotic about stuff, because some people like start to get this idea, I need to not eat ever. No, we want to balance. We have to be balanced. We have to be balanced eating and non-eating. So what we recommend is 2 or 3 meals in a day with no snacking in between, and that's the perfect balance of giving the body what it needs and also giving the body the space that it needs to tap into fat stores for fuel. And then combine that with not having any carbohydrates or sugar or starch for the first part of the day. And then in the evening, when you're watching your little shows or whatever it is you like to do in relaxation, you can have a little bit of your fruit, a little bit of your dark chocolate. And then we had a little bit of a discussion around, okay, so we said 3/4 of a cup of fruit in the evening is ideal. And she loves clementines. We're like, how many clementines is that? I'll say maybe 2 or 3, something like that, if we were to cram that in. She's like, well, I'm having 6 or 7 or 8. Okay, well, now we know we want to pull back on that maybe, but at the same time, let's just say that we have 6 or 7 or 8 clementines. Isn't that a heck of a lot better than the Mountain Dews and stuff? You know what I'm saying? So, like, let's be easy on ourselves, have fun with it, and then just understand we're moving towards optimal. We don't have to be optimal right out of the gate, but we know what to do, and let's just keep moving in that direction. And we also talked about like enjoying the journey. That's such a cliche thing, but really, this is about like just, okay, this is it's fascinating, it's interesting, it's an adventure, we're trying all this stuff, we're learning new information, and before you know it, you're engaged, and 6 months, a year from now, things keep changing, which they've changed a lot for you anyway, so. I feel like there's one other little thing that we covered there towards the end. I don't know, I think that's kind of about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's everything. That's some really good information, I feel like. So.
Good light bulb moment.
Yeah, yeah. So, big takeaways. 100% fresh, real food as often as you can. Powders are not real food. Can we use some supplements like some collagen powder and some other things as a complement to a real food way of eating? Of course, absolutely. But the majority of what we eat, we want to think of in terms of vital, living, life force, jiving, like me like that like me. And it doesn't mean it has to be raw. You can cook it, but it needs to be that, right? 100% real food, 2 or 3 meals in a day, no snacking in between. Why do we not want snacking? Because the only time my body's going to tap into my fat stores is when it has to, and if I'm eating, it doesn't have to. And especially if I'm eating sugar, I'm giving it the wrong signal. Now, we can have a little bit of sugar or starch in the evening because we've had that whole day of training. But that's the big takeaways from this. And then I think the final takeaway is love and kindness to ourselves and being easy on ourselves about this whole process, because we're trying to figure it out just like everybody else is trying to figure out. But what we got going for us is we know the truth. And most people don't have the truth. Most people are stuck in that paradigm that you were in, which is the powders and the eating every 2 or 3 hours and the snacks and the chicken breast and the egg whites. That was another big thing we talked about.
Right.
Like, chicken breast, fine, boring. I'm not chicken breast. Like, I'm more freaking pork and beef than I am anything else, So, but, and that doesn't, whatever. You can eat whatever you like in that realm, in our realm, but anyway, I think that's all we got for today.
Okay. Thanks, Bill.
All right, thank you. That was great.
All right, hey y'all, I just wanted to say one more thing. I was hoping Debbie would come in for a workout today so that we could get her on camera and just cover this additional topic. It was something that we talked about that we didn't talk about in the video. And that was, so, Debbie has, like all of us or a lot of us, uses the scale to measure progress. And she said that she's tired of the scale, she's not getting on it anymore because it doesn't change that much. But I asked her, what other things are changing for her? And of course, her energy level, she feels great. Her clothes change had gone from a 28 overall to, she's been kind of stuck at a 16 and then recently jumped into a 14. I don't know what the heck that means as far as women go, but evidently it's a good thing. So, of course, we had a discussion around, if you're doing intense training here in CrossFit and weightlifting and you're putting on some muscle, there's probably some body composition, redistribution type stuff happening. So the scale is probably not the best thing to measure only in and of itself, and especially not on a daily basis. But it can be really useful. I'm not going to say that a lot of us don't weigh ourselves here and there, but I think you have a different mentality about it and a different attitude. But that's not what this is about. What this is about is, I told Debbie, I said, see, think about all these things that are shifting. And when we talked about what she's eating, because she's been learning about how to eat through osmosis through her son Josh, which I've been working with, and he's doing amazing. And then of course, coming in with this visit with her, we got to fine tune some things and nitpick some things that she could do better. But anyway, she's, when I talked to her about what she was doing, like, she wasn't doing that bad. She was actually doing really good. And I told Debbie, I said, see, you got these things changing. Maybe, let's just take a moment here. Maybe you're doing pretty damn good. Maybe you're not doing that bad. Maybe we need to stop and pause and acknowledge that, we get really neurotic about trying to get all these things to shift and change, and I get it, like, I'm there with all of us, and I'm on this path too, and that's what this is all about, trying to optimize and get better and see how much better we can get. But we have to practice love and kindness to ourselves as we go through this process. And sometimes we have to pause and acknowledge, like, maybe I'm doing pretty good. Maybe I'm doing really good. Maybe I'm doing the best I can with what I have. And maybe it's not always going to be sunshines and rainbows, and things aren't always going to be shifting in a good direction. I'm not always going to be PRing and hitting these ultra body composition changes and all this other stuff. And that's not to say that we don't have work to do. We don't want to keep striving for better and optimizing and all that kind of stuff. But maybe you're doing all right. And maybe we need to pause and acknowledge that you're putting a lot of work into this thing that you're doing for yourself. And I'm talking to you. I'm not just talking to Debbie. Maybe you're doing pretty damn good, and you need to acknowledge that. And that's not to say that we don't want to get better, but stop being so hard on yourself. Have fun with this. And I know that's easier said than done, but sometimes when you get into those moments of funk and like stressing out and like and getting frustrated and all that stuff, that's probably not serving you. It's not adding to the forward momentum. All right, we're going to have ebbs and flows and ups and downs and ins and outs and monkeys in the wrenches and flies in the ointment, and you know, all this stuff is just part of this journey. I heard this really good Alan Watts video the other day, and it was you know, he's like, what's the point of a dance when you go to watch dance, right? When you watch people do salsa dancing or something. Sabrina, you recognize this? Well, it's the dance. Like, you're there to watch the dance. And if you're a dancer, you're there to dance. It's not for the last step. You're not there to watch the last step or to be a part of the last. It's the dance. And same thing when you're playing an instrument, you know? When you're playing an instrument, it's about playing. It's not about the last note or the final thing. And that's what life is about, you know? And sometimes I think we all need to pause and remember there is no final destination. There is no, I'm going to arrive, and finally when I get this, then I'm going to be happy. And when I get to this point, no, you're not. I told Debbie, that's another thing I told Debbie. She goes, but if I can just get to, I was like, Debbie, you know what? I have plenty of people that come in here that you would say look absolutely amazing, and they're still not happy with where they're at. And most of us are never going to be happy with it until we stop and pause and understand that it's not about that. It's not about getting to this final point, because there is no final point. If you think that final point is going to make you happy, it's not going to make you happy, because when you get there, it's going to be like, and now what? And then what? You know, so life is like playing an instrument. It's about the play. It's about the dance. It's about being engaged, and it's about being thankful for the information that we have, because the information we have about how to eat and how to move naturally with Colby and the CrossFit Combine here is a gift that a lot of people don't have. And there's a lot of people out there that are suffering and struggling and cannot figure this out. We have the gift of health, or at least the knowledge of what we need to do. And we might not be perfect with it, but let's celebrate in that, and let's have a good time with it. And I'm saying that for myself just as much as anybody else, because I get caught up in it too. And this all comes from. And I had a phone call come in, so I just wanted to finish with, love you guys, love you so much. This all comes from a good place and a good heart, and we're in this together, yo. Later.